2 Soviet women pilots climbed down from their aircraft. I reached out my hand to the first one. "Hi, I'm Violet Willie. I'm here delivering a pursuit for the Lend-Lease program." "Lieutenant Lydia Levikov, my co-pilot Sonia Bursova, 588th Night Bomber Regiment. Thank you for your services," she said in a thick Russian accent. We shook hands as I looked at their plane. "What type of airplane are you flying?" "Come," the lieutenant said as she gestured me towards her plane. "This is a PO-2. It was designed in 1927, and the beauty of the plane, it is capable of descending on any landscape. It reminds me of the first airplane I flew in as a young girl," I said nostalgically. "How so?" the lieutenant asked. "It's made of fabric and wood," I said, feeling the wing affectionately. "Yes, that's her downfall. It is a fire hazard in combat, and the fuel tanks are not shielded, so it is very vulnerable to being set on fire if hit. At least it can carry 2 1,200-pound bombs, and it does have a machine gun in the rear cockpit," Lydia said proudly. With my gloved hand, I felt one of the white roses painted on the side of the PO-2. I smiled, glancing at the pilots. Lieutenant Levikov looked pleased that I had noticed them. "Those are for my hits. I am called the White Rose of Stalingrad," she said. "Hits?" I asked, surprised. She put her hands on her hips. "Each of these roses signifies my successes in bombing the Nazis." "Oh," I said meekly. "Women aren't allowed to serve in combat here in America. But I know now, despite what all the men say, women can obviously be quite an asset to this war." A gust of wind came off the snow-capped mountains, causing me to shiver. I noticed it did not faze these tough young Soviet women. I had heard it could get down to 40 below where they came from. The Soviet 588th Women's Night Bombers Regiment, Russia was the first nation to use women pilots in combat. They flew 23,000 combat missions, 15 to 18 a night. 400 women pilots there were in the 588th Women's Night Bombers, and 30 died in service. They flew 1,100 nights of combat. In 1990, 50 WASPs went to Russia and revisited some of the night bombers. With our pilots, it's unbelievable that 38 women in the WASPs died and never left the United States. 2 were from documented acts of sabotage by our male mechanics. Hazel Lee was the first woman to die in a mid-air collision in 1944. 407 of the women pilots were injured. 8 months before the war was over, a bill was presented to Congress to give military status to the WASPs. It was defeated. The House Committee on Civil Service reported that the training was wasteful because our men were coming back and they could take over at that point, ferrying the planes. The women were very upset and they offered to continue to serve for $1 a year, but were turned down. They were deactivated in December 44, 8 months before the war even ended, which was very devastating for them because they did not get to celebrate the end of the war with the women who they were serving with. These women flew 77 types of airplanes for the men to fly into combat. They flew 60 million miles. They